just learning to say no is a very, it's sort of like a necessary journey for all artists, you know. I think just knowing how and when to set up boundaries is very important, and it just, you know, comes with time and experience. And yeah, I'm still learning.
Yo, what's up? This is Toru, and in a way, so are you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a music producer, artist, and entrepreneur. I make music for that space between the dance floor and the bedroom, which has been streamed millions of times and been licensed by brands big and small, including companies like Apple. I believe that regardless of what you produce, whether it be music, art, physical goods, or even spreadsheets, you have a process, whether you know it or not. To explore this further, I created the Producerhead podcast. Producerhead is a place to have conversations with other producers about their experience and process to share what works and what doesn't, to help each of us learn and improve our own processes along the way. Today's guest is Metic, a producer who fuses soulful guitar grooves with laid-back hip-hop beats. His playing is rooted in blues and fingerstyle guitar, and his productions are informed by 90s boom bap, G-funk, and trip-hop. A frequent collaborator, the Brooklyn-based Hong Kong native continues to draw inspiration from both cities. This is showcased in his album releases, Thoughts on Home and Symmetry, and Soul Feather. Both document his life and travels across his home and hometown. Whereas A Fleeting Dream in Waking Life is a collaborative album with Hong Kong ambient producer Norvik that explores the borders of ambient music and beat making. Welcome to part 2 of this 2-part conversation with Metic, where we discuss quality versus quantity as it pertains to relationships, Metic's experience releasing vinyl using crowdfunding through Qrates, as well as owning the process independently, the 3 major categories of work as an artist and how to approach allocating your energy across each one, managing expectations in a way that allows you to maintain forward motion, and a reminder that you don't have to be good at everything in order to succeed. If you haven't already, I invite you to listen to part 1 of this conversation for additional context as some topics re-emerge and develop. And if you've already heard part 1, I encourage you to go back and listen to an episode that you may have missed. Don't worry, a new episode is on the way. All right, with all of that said, let's drop into part 2 of this conversation with Metic. That idea that like everything is negotiable is really cool, and I'm curious, are there things that you've either listened to, read, or found elsewhere that maybe you can share that help other people kind of develop that attitude and that, you know, willingness to kind of put themselves out there? Because I think oftentimes producers, artists in general, when they get opportunities, they get very excited about them to the point where they almost want that part of it to just be over, you know, and move on. Right. And so it can be an uncomfortable place to be. And it's also not something, most artists don't study law, you know, and it's something, and don't have a lot of experience negotiating, generally speaking. So I'm curious, if there's anything that you've found that helped you along that path.
A lot of it's just like reading through like the terms, you know, they'll send you a contract and just read it through, you know, like, and use common sense. And, you know, if something says, you know, oh, this is, the term of this contract will be like 20 years, and just know that that's a very long time. You know, it's not, you know, are you comfortable with, you know, granting them 20 years of, you know, there's just stuff like, if anything jumps out at you, then it's probably something that's worth bringing up. But, you know, at the same time, if you're just like testing out a label, and, you know, and if it's just like a single that, you know, I guess that you like, but you don't, it's not like a deeply personal thing, you know, at the same time, you know, I guess you don't need to be too hung up on the terms if you don't want to. But, you know, also just know that walking away is fine. You know, you don't have to build relationships with everybody, you know, like, just know that, or you know, like, even if you walk away, it doesn't mean you're burning a bridge, right? Like, you're not, just know that walking away is also an option, you know, and just say, you know, you'll have something that's more fitting for them next time around.
Right. That's really cool what you just mentioned about, you know, being okay to walk away.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, and that you don't have to make relationships with everybody, you know? And so I guess back to a little bit what we were talking about in that quality versus quantity, how do you apply that in the context of relationships?
Well, like when I first got into like really like putting out, releasing music and making beats and releasing music, like it was like in 2018, it was like still when Instagram was still very much like, you know, organic reach was everywhere. And like, I actually met a lot of people through through Instagram that way. And I like met a lot of, different, like, just came to know a bunch of different labels through that as well. And I guess that was kind of like my quantity phase, where I was like in exploratory mode, where I was just like connecting with, a lot of people, and then different labels. And then, I started working with, quite a few of them. And then just through that process kind of distilled the good experiences, and, and then learning from that, and then figuring out, okay, maybe if I have another like big release or something, I could always go back to this label, And same goes with collaborators too, like sometimes I do a lot of like remote guitar work for people, other beat makers, and I feel like it was much more of an exploratory phase back then, and now I'm like, most of my remote guitar work are with like people who I've worked with in the past.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting to see it kind of be so similar across the music and the way that you work with people as well. And I know, man, so last year you put out your own vinyl release. So I was wondering if maybe you can talk a little bit about that, just because I know there are a lot of people that aspire to, whether it's with a label or otherwise, do that. And if maybe you can kind of show them some of what it's really like to set the expectations, because naturally we all love vinyl, and it's really cool to have, something physical like that. However, it is a very different project, and I haven't done it myself, but I imagine to be very different than releasing digital music.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, man. Like, well, it's because I also wanted to, it was like the album was like independently released. And so last year I kind of set that out as a goal. Like, I want to do independently release an album and do a physical run. And, at first I didn't even know vinyl was a possibility for me, I did a cassette run as well. And then it was through talking to someone you had on your show, actually, Cryptic One. He has so much experience in this space, and he presses his own vinyl, and he's done so for many, many years. And just through talking to him, where he was like, "Yeah, it's possible." He still does it, And then I was like, "Okay, you know what?" Like, talking to him just gave me this sense of like comfort. Okay, yeah, maybe I can do it, And I started looking into it, finding a vinyl pressing plant, and talking to them, doing the design, and then I basically like did everything on my own, because that was what I wanted to do. But it was a lot of work, and I'd say it's worthwhile. It's definitely a rewarding process, because I feel like the connection that you build through releasing vinyl with the people who buy your vinyl, definitely much deeper than streaming. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but like, kind of experienced it firsthand. I have to distinguish what I did last year with also what I did the year before, which was the year before I also pressed a vinyl via my collab project called Horizon Terminal. So it was this vinyl called Pastel Lovers, but at the time, we didn't know pressing it ourselves was an option, so we did it through the service called Qrates with a Q. So they're like this website that helps you connect with the different pressing plants, and also has a crowdfunding platform. Get your vinyl press, if it hits like past 100 backers and all that stuff. But that wasn't as rewarding, in the sense that like I wasn't the one fulfilling the orders. I wasn't the one shipping the vinyl. I wasn't the one, packaging everything. On the one hand, that's sort of like the selling point of Qrates. You don't have to do all that stuff. But on the other hand, like, through doing everything myself last year for Thoughts on Home and Symmetry, I kind of like really fell in love with the process of packaging each vinyl, and like, writing notes to, for vinyl that's going out to homies and all that stuff. Like, I would, write and sign stuff, and then just like, it's just adds a much more like personal touch to this whole process that I wasn't able to get when I was with Qrates. Because like, when I was doing the Qrates campaign, like, my friends would hit me up and be like, "Hey, can you sign this for me?" I'm like, I would love to, but I don't have the vinyl. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't have it with me. Like, I can just hold on to it, and then I'll sign it when I see you, if I get to see you anytime soon.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, with Qrates, you get that benefit of like, okay, we don't have to carry the financial burden and the inventory, right? But you lose a little bit of that personal touch and that control in the process, is what it sounds like, more or less. So yeah, that's
I mean,
tough, man.
the
Yeah.
financial overhead is definitely a big deterrent. So like when I went into it, I actually got lucky in the sense that this record store in Hong Kong reached out to me about stocking my vinyl. So like, yeah, they have like about 30 of my records. I don't know how much is left, but like, so like they're helping with the distribution a little bit as well. So just to take a little bit of the load off of me. Actually, that goes into my like sort of second point about releasing with vinyl is like it's really a whole different demographic. You know, you're really reaching out to these record stores and diggers. And actually the record store that reached out to me was founded by this guy that I used to be that I used to go to these like vinyl listening sessions with back in Hong Kong. Like, so there was this community, very niche community of us that would just get together like maybe once a month. We would go to like this guy, his name's Blair. We'd go to his living room and we would just like listen to vinyl. You know, each evening would be hosted by a different person, and then they would curate the vinyl that we would be listening to throughout the night. And it was called Sonic Aviators, this whole thing. And I met a lot of people through that community actually, and shout out to Blair, and then also shout out to Corbett, who's I met through Sonic Aviators, and he's the one that's behind the record store that's stocking my vinyl. His record store is called The Listening Room, so shout out to them too.
You mentioned how it's a different demographic, and I think
Totally different, yeah.
And I think especially like, you know, somebody who's going to listen to your song and maybe come across it in a more lean back way, as Biro said a couple episodes back, as opposed to like being like, you know, I'm going to buy this record, is a very different kind of fan, and a person has a different level of familiarity with your music. And so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts. We've been talking a lot about this recently related to, you know, getting discovered by fans and developing more relationships with potential fans so that you can actually have people in the world that'd be interested in buying vinyl.
I mean, slinging physical products is hard. Yeah. A lot of it also goes back to just having help too. You know, the Listening Room, they were featuring my vinyl in their storefront for a while, and then like that reached out to a lot of like, you know, different people that were like just not necessarily there to buy my vinyl, but like they were just there all listening. Oh, this I'm kind of what's playing right now, that type of thing. Like yeah, it's like kind of through like having that, and also like having released some physical products, some tapes in the past. So I released this cassette in the past with Inner Ocean Records called A Fleeting Dream and Waking Life. Through that experience, I was able to, you know, reach out to, so Inner Ocean, for example, so they have a network of cassette stores around the world, actually mainly in Japan, that stock their cassettes. So through that release, I was able to like connect with some Japanese audiences, just cassette lovers and all that stuff. Yeah. You know, they weren't necessarily fans of me. They were definitely like a fan of the label. And through that, they were able to like discover my music. And having done physical releases in the past, you know, with Inner Ocean, and then having Listening Room help me out with stocking some of my vinyl and all that stuff. And then, you know, all that stuff kind of accumulates, right? You know, so I have a record of, you know, people who have bought my stuff in the past, so that when I, you know, put out new products, you know, I could like, you know, reach out to the same people and be like, hey, here's something new, you know? And then the goal is just to keep accumulating and keep building.
Yeah, that's really dope, because I like it's so much different than a lot of like kind of what's currently talked about in terms of strategy, I think, in terms of building an audience as an artist in the digital space. In a sense, it's taking a strategy and a distribution channel that's existed for a long time. And so instead of taking people that trying to sell vinyl to people who already know who you are, it's putting it in places like record stores, for instance, where people are going to go and are interested in just maybe bumping in and browsing into something new, or taking a recommendation from somebody at a store like that. And that's a cool way to go about it.
I think it's like where you are in the funnel, right? Because like I don't think, you know, ideally you definitely want people to be eagerly anticipating your next album, your next release, and all that stuff. Like that's sort of like the end goal, but that's like kind of lower in the funnel, right? Where like you have your core diehard fans and all that stuff. But like, how do you get those? Yeah, you don't get it without the top of funnel people, right? Like that's the kind of the people who are more casual listeners who walk into record stores without knowing what they're going to buy, and then So like I'm still kind of like, in that phase where I'm kind of trying to bring people in type of thing.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, man, and I think it was kind of interesting that I never thought of it this way before, but to kind of think about our work, it's simplifying and reducing to an extent, but the idea that our work kind of falls into three categories, one being like the craft itself, one being networking, and then the other being marketing. And I'm curious about so if you take those three, crafts, networking, and marketing, how do you prioritize them in most important to least important in the way that you spend your time?
Well, craft is definitely the most important, like at least in my eyes.
Yeah.
I think, if you ask artists and my peers and all that, like craft is definitely like the main thing. I don't know. I guess after that it's kind of like a push for me between networking and marketing, because I feel like, networking is definitely important, but, if you already like kind of have your own voice in marketing, that could do a lot of the work for you, Problem with a lot of people, including me, where it's like, okay, when I'm doing marketing, like I'm not totally comfortable like in front of a camera. I'm not great at selling, and I feel like that's pretty common with like people who work behind the scenes, like beat maker producers and all that. But yeah, so like without having like a distinct strategy or voice in marketing, I feel like networking becomes a lot more important as well. So yeah, it kind of depends on your skill set and, what's more valuable to you, I guess.
Yeah, which of those do you think comes the least naturally to you?
Marketing, I think, because at least I don't know. I don't really look at networking as, going to a networking session and be like, hey, my name is Johnny, blah, blah, blah. Like I'm kind of looking at it just like, I just like meeting new like-minded people. And I actually, I meet a lot of people through, other beat shows in New York City or other shows in general. And then, inevitably, when you meet other beat makers, you never run out of things to talk about, really.
Knowing that marketing is where you feel maybe the least comfortable in a natural way, are there things that you think about to improve it, or do you think more like what I'm going to do is lean more into the other two?
That's a good question. Well, I think at the moment, I just don't have the resources to be able to like offload any part of these responsibilities to other people, right? So like, so at the moment, it's just I can't afford to not focus on any one of those things. So yeah, I think at the moment it's just getting more comfortable with, getting the word out about new releases and getting more comfortable about talking about my work and sharing it with people. And, it gets easier. Like, I think what ends up happening is like, for example, when I was promoting my album last year, I was pushing out the vinyl quite a bit, and then I was doing a lot of content around that, and then it actually got easier as it went on. Just recording each piece and like just talking to the camera, talking about the vinyl, all that stuff. It got easier as it went on, but now when I'm not pushing it as hard, I kind of like fall back behind the scenes, and then it kind of like gets harder again, like trying to like figure out.
Interesting. So it sounds like what you do is you kind of base it around projects, and there's not maybe like an ongoing effort around marketing in general.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. And so what have you found has made it easier for you over time?
I think just doing it. Just doing it. And then also like trying to tell myself that even if a post doesn't do well, it's not the end of the world. Like it's really not. I think at the very beginning, I kind of had that notion like, oh man, if people didn't really respond to this, oh man, like I kind of beat myself up over it. But like nowadays, just move on to the next. Like it really, it's quite low commitment in that sense. Like I'm not going to let one poor performing post kind of like affect my mental. And plus people are busy, man. Like people are busy, everyone's got their own lives. And plus, with the algorithm, all that stuff, like people miss stuff and it's totally fair. I miss stuff, like it's totally fair. So, just gotta keep doing it, man.
Yeah, so I'm curious about like, because I think some of what you're speaking to with that, right, is like, is sort of having expectations that are realistic and that are inclusive of the circumstances of the world that we live in a sense.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm curious about how, even with your craft and with your networking and your marketing, how do you set expectations with those things? Because maybe you're in a place where you'd like to be better at one of them, you know, than you are in some way, shape, or form, or your expectations are. And so I'm wondering how you, and maybe you don't even think of it that way, you know, but I'm curious about how you think about progress and growth in those areas.
Mm-hmm. I think just trying different things, you know, trying different strategies. You know, for a while, I never even spoke in front of the camera. You know, I was just doing like guitar videos, and then I started doing the whole talking thing, you know, when I was pushing out my vinyl, and it really wasn't that bad. Like I think a lot of the times we live in our own heads, and we think things are a much bigger deal than they are. But really, like you got to try different things in order to be able to find your own voice in whatever you're trying to do. You know, whether it's in music, finding your sound, or in promotion, finding your voice and how you push your product out. So you just got to keep trying different things, and then it's kind of like the quantity versus quality thing again, you know, like you just try different things until you find the stuff that works for you. But I haven't really found the thing that works for me in front of me when it comes to marketing yet, so I'm still trying.
Yeah, but I love that though, man, because it is cool, right? It's that idea that you're just going to try this, and whatever it is just the kind of current version of it. And it's certainly not going to be the last one unless you really just give up and decide not to do it anymore. You know, so to your point, it just makes it less serious and less heavy when you see it as one of an infinite number of things that haven't even happened yet, as opposed to like, this is the only thing that I'm ever doing, you know?
Right.
To your point, it's like, you know, you do it, it does how it does, you take what you can from it, what part of it you can kind of look at more objectively and learn from. Take it forward into the next one, you know, and then just kind of repeat that over and over again. And the more that you do that, the more each one of them becomes less, they don't carry as much weight. You know, this is just another thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to get to.
You don't have to be good at everything, right? Like, it's like some people, like, for example, like, I suck at Twitter. Some people do great promotion on Twitter. You know, they're witty, you know, stream of consciousness thoughts. It's like, you know, a gazillion tweets a day, and that's like a great platform for them to push their content out. And with me, like I gave that a try, and it wasn't, I figured it wasn't for me. Yeah, you don't have to be good at everything. You know, it's all about trying it and then figuring out, okay, is this worth my time, more of my time and my investment? And I'm like, okay, Twitter's not for me.
Right. I mean, I think that's also a really important and interesting idea, right? Is that I think, especially now, I think there's this sort of pressure. You need to be everywhere all the time. And when you're one person, I think there's some truth to it, and I think there's some value in figuring out how to do it. But if your concern is, hey, I need to be everywhere all the time, that can actually pull you away from kind of the three things that we've been talking about. You know, like, it's going to pull you away from craft. It's going to pull like the core craft of whatever it is that you're trying to make, which, as you kind of described, is the most important piece. And so it's sort of that thing, like, if you're going to be, when you're only one person and when you don't have the help, that's something to be careful about and thoughtful about, because all the time that you're not working on that, you make it harder for to just enjoy doing the thing that you want to do and to actually develop that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, knowing when to not do something is also just as important.
How do you think you've developed like that mechanism for yourself to be like, oh, you know what, this is actually not worth my time, or I need to set a boundary here and be like, I need to get back to this because I'm getting too far away from the thing that I actually want to be doing?
Just learning to say no is it's sort of like a necessary journey for all artists, you know. I think just knowing how and when to set up boundaries is very important, and it just, you know, comes with time and experience. And yeah, I'm still learning.
How have you developed your priorities and decided these are the things that are important?
I try not to like overthink in this area. Like, sometimes I just don't have the capacity. I'm already like working on, you know, like a couple of remixes, and I'm trying to finish an album, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Like, I'm owing people, you know, stems and all that stuff. Like, you know, when times like that, when it's like that, I I just say I have no problem saying I just don't have the time and capacity and all that stuff. Sometimes I get hit up by people who aren't even like don't even share like that similar of a sound, and yeah, I have no problems like kind of just saying like sorry, I don't think there's a good fit.
So I guess, man, I got these quick hits I want to give to you. Before we get into that, are there projects that you've already put out that you want to share and tell people about, as well as any kind of upcoming things?
The album I put out in October last year is called Thoughts on Home and Symmetry. It's out on streaming, out on cassette and vinyl. I only have 9 more vinyl with me. So do tap in if you want to cop one. Got a couple of remixes coming up. It's funny because I've like spent so many years kind of like, you know, doing these bootlegs, and like I've never really been able to do official remix work. And coming up in April, or actually next week, I got a remix coming out. I'm remixing one of Charisma's song. Charisma is like this guitarist, beatmaker / electronic musician. He has this album out called Compass, and then I'm remixing one of the tracks on it called Fork in the Road, and that's coming out next week. So I'm pretty stoked for it. It's definitely like up there in my like one of my favorite tracks I've done. So sometimes when you're remixing, magic kind of happens like that. That doesn't really come out when you're doing original work, and yeah, that's why I love like doing bootlegs and remixes so much. But yeah, this is my first ever official remix. And then May, I have another official remix coming up where it's I'm just remixing another beatmaker buddy called Big Chef Dog, and then he did his first. He used to rap as well, but he's been on a hiatus, and then he just put out a vocal track early on this year, and decided to share his acapella, and I was like, I'm gonna remix it, and then he liked it, and then we're gonna do an official release from that. So that's gonna be out in May as well. So yeah, for how long I've been trying to do remix work, like all of a sudden 2 remixes come along, and there's one that's like down the pipeline that's may or may not happen later on this year too. So
Gotcha. Yeah, right on. So
Yeah.
you heard it here. The vinyl's almost gone, so go pick it up. Thoughts on Home and Symmetry, and streaming everywhere, of course. And where can people follow you so they can keep up with these remixes as they drop?
mainly just Instagram. I'm on other socials too, but Instagram's the main thing.
Gotcha. And your handle?
Metic Music, METIC Music. You know, my Bandcamp too, but like in terms of day-to-day stuff, you know, Instagram's a lot more, I guess, personal, for me at least, yeah.
Yeah, right on. Very cool, man. With that, let's jump into some of these quick hits. Which DAW do you use?
Actually, both Logic and Ableton. So I produce with Logic from the very, very early get-go, and then I've been putting off learning Ableton for many, many years, and then trying to build a better live performance setup, I finally took a deep dive into Ableton Session View. So I have like a Session View setup, but I think the goal, or you know, one of the things on my to-do list is to learn Ableton Arrangement View. So to see whether I can move fully away from Logic. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
That's kind of, time will tell on that.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense though. But yeah, I mean, there's no question that Ableton in the live setting is
Yeah, Session View is crazy.
pretty much
I love it for
unparalleled,
live
yeah.
performance. And,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I would say that's the more challenging piece of it, really. So it'll just be a matter of time.
Yeah. I've been saying that for years again. So I yeah. I've been saying that. Oh man, I want to like fully dive into Ableton and all that. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully something clicks this year.
Nice, man. Yeah. Go-to sound or instrument?
I mean, guitar always. I guess just like clean tone with a bit of dirt.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of dirt on the clean tone these days. I used to just love all clean tone, but like now I'm just embracing the dirt.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the way that you do process guitar for anybody that might be out there?
Well, for many, many years, I've just been doing software amp sims. I've never owned an amp. I've never owned a pedal board. And then everything I do guitar sounds wise was just through Guitar Rig or any of the Neural DSP plugins. which they make great stuff. So you could go really, really far just based on software alone. But last year I started just diving into the pedal world, the analog world. And so I've built out like a mini board. It's got like 6-7 pedals in the chain. And yeah, I've been, so like lately, in the past year, I've just been making a lot more stuff that's not plug-in based, at least for the guitar. It's just what I have on my board is just compressor, phaser, octave, and like a envelope filter, overdrive, just this amp in a box pedal called the ACS1 from Morris, and then a reverb and delay. That's it.
Nice. And what's the guitar processing on like Thoughts and Home and Symmetry, for instance?
It's actually still mainly the plugin world. There's a couple of songs where I finished on the later end where it coincided with me getting starting my pedal journey. So there's this lead tone in Hometown Calls, which is a track on Thoughts on Home and Symmetry. There's this lead tone that I really liked in that song that was from my very, very new pedal board. And I had to put it in there just because, it was different from anything I've made with software in the past.
That said, do you have a go-to plugin?
I guess just the Neural DSP Corey Wong plugin, the Archetype is great. And then other than that, just like Soothe 2. Soothe 2 and EQ.
Your favorite piece of gear, maybe aside from your guitar?
I guess my interface or the APC. I guess it's a push. But I use a Army Babyface. I love it. I'm a big fan.
3 producers you think everybody could benefit from listening to and you can't use Madlib or Dilla?
I guess for me, Nujabes, let's see, DJ Shadow. I mean, I could go on, RGD2, Pete Rock. I mean, even like the more instrumental side of things, like FKJ, Tomish, they're big inspirations for me too.
Yeah, right on. 3 favorite albums.
So I can't say that so I have to connect it back to the first song I shared, which was the Tommy Guerrero album, Soul Food Takiera. That kicked off a lot of things for me in my creative journey. Nujabes, Modal Soul, probably. I mean, there's the Daft Punk Discovery, but like, actually, one is Moon Safari from Air. Wow. I'm going to see them. They're coming to New York in September or October later this year. They're doing like a Moon Safari tour.
No way!
I can't wait for that.
I love that record. Yeah,
so that's up there too in my all-timers.
Man, I had no idea they were. I'm gonna have to look into that. Man, I would.
Yeah, they're doing a U.S. tour. So later part of this year, they're doing like a European tour right now. So. Wow,
Moon Safari. That would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, man. Yeah, thank you for that one. Yeah, that's. I mean, if anyone listening here hasn't, there's almost no way that you haven't at least heard one of those songs, even passively in a movie soundtrack or something. But that album is truly. It's a good one, man. I love it. That's a great call. Yeah. Someone else you think I should talk to on this podcast?
Charisma would be a great person to talk to. He's based out of LA, and I'm doing his remix, and just all around great guy. He tours a lot. He's very active and prolific as well. He does a lot of remixes, and just a solid dude, very solid dude in the community. Within the New York beat making community, I would probably say Brown Jewel as well. She's just a beat battle veteran. She's very active in teaching beat making as well. Does a lot of stuff for Serato. She gives talks for Serato, like just working through Serato Studio and beat making workflow, all that stuff. And great person to talk to as well.
Favorite movie?
This is a little cheesy, but it's Good Will Hunting for me. It's just because I went to high school in Massachusetts, and it also brings up some like, Boston nostalgia for me, and also Elliott Smith, because he was heavily featured in the soundtrack, and that pushed me into like a deep Elliott Smith phase.
Oh yeah, wow.
Needless to say, that was a very emotional time of my life, the Elliott Smith phase. But it was so good because I was able to like pick up a lot of things on the guitar from the way he played guitar, which was like very unique. A lot of finger style, a lot of finger picking, and I learned a lot from that's a tangent, but I learned a lot from
honestly, that guitar part and like somebody that I used to know is just crazy. Like I don't even how you thought to write that rhythmically and everything. Like, it just doesn't even make sense.
It's crazy how he's able to play all that stuff and sing so well at the same time. Like, at least, you know, when I was very early on in my guitar journey, I was like, wow, how the hell are you doing all this in one person? You know?
Yeah, really, really sneaky guy, man. And I mean, Figure Eight is like one of my. I mean, I used to listen to that so much.
Oh man, just Angeles and all. Yeah, I can't. It was a phase.
I hear you, man.
Still remember the ending credits of Good Will Hunting. That was like, anyway, like because it was like it ended on a Elliott Smith song, Fade Out, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, man.
I know there's a lot of Boston haters out there, so you know, you can get it out of the way. I'm a Celtics fan too, so.
What character from a book, movie, or show do you most identify with?
Oh, this is a tough one, man. I mean, Cowboy Bebop's one of my all-time favorite shows, but I don't really know if I identify with anyone in it. Like Spike is way too smooth for me to identify with. I don't know, man. Maybe Chucky and Good Will Hunting, just because that's fresh on my mind. Just because like I'm like he's not a mad genius like Will Hunting, but just a good, solid, loyal friend / dude.
If you were to do one thing that would break the internet, what would it be?
Hopefully it's music related. I don't know. Hopefully it's not just some meme like a remix or something that I did in the night.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, man. I mean, that's all I got. Is there anything else you'd like to say to us, share with us before we get out of here?
Nah, man. I think that covers a lot of ground. I'm very happy that you've given me this opportunity to kind of just share my background and also just share. I love that you do the 3 tracks at the beginning of the podcast, and I was able to share a little bit of my Hong Kong hip hop nostalgia with you and your listeners. And yeah, that's the first track they ever made from the first OG like hip hop group in Hong Kong. Essentially, I'm really happy to share that with everyone. No,
that's what's up, man. I mean, you definitely educated us a little bit today, and so we appreciate that. And man, I just appreciate. I mean, you're just very, you're laid back, but it's clear that you care very deeply about the music that you make, and you want others to do well also. And thanks for just being transparent about your experience as it pertains to collaboration, working with labels, and putting out your own vinyl, and just not sugarcoating it. So, and yeah, man, I mean, happy to have you. Thank you so much for being here with us, man.
Thank you. Thank you once again, Toru.
Yeah, man, this has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. We will catch you next time on Producerhead. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Producerhead. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to drop a review and send this to a friend. It really helps Producerhead find its place and its people. Don't forget to head over to torubeat.substack.com and subscribe. This is where you'll be able to find an organized consolidation of each episode of Producerhead along with transcripts. You will also receive the bi-weekly podium, a top 3 curation of my favorite things found on and offline over the past week. It's a 2-minute read that provides you with a personal soundtrack, ideas, and practical inspiration that you can use immediately. So tap in and receive the bi-weekly podium, a top 3 personally curated by me for free. torubeat.substack.com and subscribe so that you don't miss any updates from me and or Producerhead. That's it for this episode of Producerhead. I appreciate you coming through and being a part of it. My hope is that it helps you unlock a bit more creativity and find progress in a way that matters to you. The theme music is one of my own songs. It is called Room to Breathe and available now on all streaming platforms. Again, for real, thank you so much for being here with me, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode of Producerhead. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.